My name is Wilson Metito. Wilson Metito is a public administrator and at times a political commentator. But this morning I received something from a friend who suggested that the entire issues of COVID-19 genesis has something to do with the creation of a new world order, whose objective is to create one world economy, one world religion, and one world government. So this kept me thinking, because I knew from the word go that this is the inception point where an intellectual conversation must begin. So what came to my mind was how people actually think. In sociology, they say that there is something called human action. Human action is human behavior. And how people think depends on their frame of reference. But the drivers of the individual frames of reference are actually they're actually intertwined with a couple of things, a multiplicity of factors that actually form the decision-making process of how people actually think. What really shapes people's opinion, what really shapes human behavior, and how are human beings arriving at decisions that they're making. This is simple. They are using a frame of reference of either maybe there are about five major frames of reference. Others will use politics as a frame of reference. Others will use religion as a very powerful frame of reference. And others will use culture, others will use education, and others will actually use economy, the economy. So these five things are very powerful in human life. And I will tell you why. Look at religion, for example, which was classified as the first estate in the ancient times when the states were forming. And today, when you ask the clergy anything to do with the COVID-19 issue, most of them will refer you to the book of Revelation in the Bible, and they will tell you that these are the signs of the end times. For those of you who've read books, you must have come across something the clergy calls eschatology. So they will refer you to the eschatology and tell you that probably this is what is happening. And they will tell you something to do with the mark of the beast, something that someone in the frame of reference from politics will never understand, will never probably agree with, but in a homogeneous, in a very homogeneous sense of thinking, probably the entire clergy will agree that. Only that people in the political realm may find it very difficult to understand what an eschatology is unless they actually have their perspectives shaped by religion. When you ask traditional African societies, because we are in Africa, anything to do with COVID-19 pandemic, they will tell you that this is a pandemic, and maybe many years back, they had a history of pandemics. And they will tell you something to do with locusts, they will tell you something to do with diseases, and they will not probably tell you something to do with the advancements in technology. And recently, I saw something from members of the fourth estate, and it was in Rift Valley, must have been the South Rift, where members of a certain community were doing something I can call a cultural autopsy of the intestines of an animal, trying to unravel whatever thought that they had about a problem that is at hand. Because whenever a problem emanates, what follows is how to do some decision making on how to solve that problem. So, to their frame of reference, doing that cultural autopsy to the intestines was probably part of the solution that they're trying to bring to the fore. And it is not debatable in their own frame of reference. They know it as a marking scheme, just like a religious actor knows that the eschatology, the study of revelations, the study of the end times is probably the best explanation of the current pandemics that we're actually seeing today. Now, when you go to politics, they will tell you that for you to achieve something, you have to work for it. And they've even coined a term, or maybe a phrase, that the end will justify the means. That when you want to get something, the process may not really matter, but the end result will justify the means. And I will tell you, they will quote things like power transitions, how states are arranged, the sovereignty of states, all those things. But believe me, all of these things that are happening because of the transitions that must happen in the world. Transitions that must happen in the world. Now we have COVID-19, and we are talking of social distancing. We're talking of social distancing, which means that social distancing was enough from the word go. Yeah, even in ancient times, social distancing was just okay. And indeed, by natural discourse, we had a social distance because you look at the individual states, they're distant to each other. You look at homes in the ancient times, they were distant to each other, But the internet has brought what I've heard people say a one village kind of, the world is now a one village kind of thing. It has brought people together, which means that it has cut links with what social distancing meant to achieve. So the first thing that I want people to understand is a current phenomenon which is already documented called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The Fourth Industrial Revolution basically is digital literacy, a new paradigm shift that has come to the world. Fourth Industrial Revolution, which simply means digital literacy. I will tell you for sure that the world is now discussing about the Internet of Things, the robotics, virtual reality, and things like artificial intelligence. These are now the tools that are consolidating the world, and probably achieving the perceived objectives of the world of having one government, one religion, and probably one economy. Maybe these are the tools that can easily consolidate the world, because they are so powerful to an extent that they can bring the entire world together like a common thing. They can blend the entire world and bring it literally together because of the power of computing and the technological advancements that these things bring about. And in the recent weeks, I've had a conversation about 5G internet, and in the previous times we've had transitions like 2G, 3G, which means this is a process, and we definitely anticipated for 5G internet. Now the contributions of the 5G internet to the world are simple. We're going to have advanced technologies in the world, and Africa is not an exception. Africa is not an exception, and I will tell you, the resources in Africa are sufficient to feed maybe 3 or 4 other continents, even the most powerful continents that we know. the resources and maybe the agricultural produce that we have the power to produce is enough maybe to feed them. But we may not have the so-called advanced technologies to tap our potential as Africa. And going back to another frame of reference is maybe education. Now, when you go to the realm of education, and I'll take Kenya as a classic example of how they are struggling to catch up with other states. The introduction of the CBC, the curriculum, what do you call the competence-based curriculum? Yeah, the CBC. A lot of other countries in the world had long ago achieved what CBC wants to instill at this moment to the learners, because they are looking at a way of doing away with a passive indoctrination of knowledge to something that will bring a scientific, some scientific calculations whose main objective will be to enable learners to acquire knowledge that is going to be creative, that is going to help them be great decision makers and people, or maybe learners who are going to be problem solvers, So it seeks to promote creativity, decision making, problem solving, and critical thinking. Unless people are able to critically think, then we cannot fundamentally achieve so much. And so these frames of reference from either education, from culture, from politics, from the economy, is what now divides the world, so that myself, I'm able to identify myself with a certain frame of reference, which my thoughts will be pegged on. But for sure I can tell you, the mistake people have made in the world is that the clergy have taken the religious frame of reference as a marking scheme to whatever that they're doing, and forgotten to have the liberty that is necessary to accommodate the views of those in the political arena, the views of those in the economics, the views of those in the education, and the views of those in the cultural frame of reference. And for me, I totally think, and I am convinced, that the people who are polished enough, people who are civilized and polished, are those who take the 5 frames of reference and deal with problem solving, decision making, and creative thinking using either of those depending on the phenomenon or the situation at hand. That is my thinking of what a polished person is. Probably a person who is liberal enough, who is not tied to the chains of religion, who is not tied to the chains of education alone, who is not tied to the chains of cultural beliefs alone, who is not tied to decision making in regard to what politics defines. So that is a person who has the liberty to think in a way that will accommodate the thinking and opinion of a person from another frame of reference outside what he believes in. So for me, if the clergy told us that the world is ending, I will tell them it's a lie. And probably I'll reserve a comment that it might be true. Because if we are talking about the sobering effects of the the environment that we already have, we have our environment highly depleted, and the natural ecosystem that we once enjoyed is affected, and the ecosystem is not complete anymore in a lot of places across the world. So the natural habitat or habitats in that particular ecosystem are not thriving anymore, and if the ecosystem is not complete, a lot of other things will be affected, like human life, the life of maybe the animals, wild animals, and the ecosystem will not be complete. So if that is the end of the world, maybe it's the end of the world for maybe the animal kingdom or maybe the human kingdom. Those are the things that are debatable. Those are the things that we can engage in an intellectual conversation with. But telling us that the end of the world is the end of human beings is a total lie, because the end of maybe the animal kingdom alone may not be the end of human life, and vice versa. But I also know that we depend on each other. Our relationship with animals is symbiotic in nature. We are actually feeding on some animals, and maybe some animals are thriving because of our existence. So a threat to human life can be a threat to to the animals, to the animal kingdom, and vice versa. The opposite is true. So this morning, I just want to share with the world that whatever perspectives we are looking at, we have to be liberal enough to have a broader spectrum when dealing with issues. And I can assure you that some people have gone ahead to claim that the drivers of change in the world to achieve these ends are certain individuals whom have been named even by the internet. They have mentioned people like Tony Blair, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jacob Rothschild, and many other influential figures across the world, including the Rockefellers. But I can assure you that whatever they are bringing to the world, if indeed it's true, is inevitable. It's actually inevitable. If the world is going to end because of advancements in human thinking and technology, then the world must end. Even if it was not maybe the plan of God, it will end because human action will be responsible for the end of the world, or maybe for the end of human life, or maybe animal life. Human action is going to be responsible for that. And however much someone from the religious groups is not satisfied with what is the decisions being made by individual states' capacities and the coalitions of states coming together, those are decisions that the clergy may never be consulted with, because they don't fall under that realm. And I will tell you that states coming together strengthens their bargaining power in communities. For example, in the Eastern African community, we can have a bargaining power when we unite. But this normally erodes the individual states' sovereignty, because the decisions made in a commonwealth supersede those decisions that are desirable in a state, what we call national interest. So the more we come together to create coalitions, we'll actually jeopardize the strength of national interest that we have. We will have put our national interest at stake by forming other regional blocs, because maybe an individual state can have national interests that are dialectically opposite to a member of their bloc. So this is how disputes come and war. But those things have actually been handled at the individual blocks, even at international capacity. And that is the function of international relations. They will deal with those things in a diplomatic way. And diplomacy will remain to be the management of international affairs by probably negotiation. That is what diplomacy is meant to achieve, basically. So the world is a standstill, probably just by one pandemic. Maybe the next pandemic, which will come, we're not praying that it comes, but maybe a second pandemic will probably stop everything. If one pandemic is almost stopping the entire world, then the second pandemic is likely going to eliminate the weaker states. Thank you.